Hi there, welcome back to another video. And as we mentioned earlier, there's a special type in JavaScript called string, which is used to store strings. We already used this type when we made an alert, although you probably didn't know that at the time. But to create a variable of the string type, we're going to write let and then the name of the variable, and then some text in quotes. So the text can either be in double quotes or in single quotes, or in grave accents, which are also called backtick symbols. You can choose any of them, but it's best to choose only one and then stick with it. So for example, you can create a variable called name with the text Walt in double quotes or in single quotes, it doesn't matter. And in addition, you can assign an entire sentence to a variable. So for example, if you can dream it, you can do it. As to grave accents or the so-called backtick symbols, they create template strings. It's best to explain what template strings are with an example. So in variable name, there is a value Walt Disney. And in the variable let with the name text, we want to save the text, if you can dream it, you can do it, by Walt Disney. And we want to keep the formatting as a quote. That's why we create the variable text. And then we write the quote in grave accents, and then on the next line, we're going to write by $, curly braces, and inside the variable name. And we're going to get a result like the one you see on the screen. As you see, template strings have peculiarities. One is that we can put inside of them either double quotes or single quotes. And in this situation, these double or single quotes will be considered as ordinary text. The second peculiarity is that if your text is not just on one line, but you need to have it on several lines, then it will be more than enough to put a break row where you need it inside of template strings. And it will work out in contrast to the first two types of quotes. That means that when we use a template string, all break rows, tabulations, spaces, and formatting in general are kept as they were. Let's try it out in the code. So first, we're going to create a variable called name with the text Walt, and we'll output this variable in the console. So for that, we're going to write console log, and in the parentheses, we're going to write the variable name in our case. Let's save it and take a look. And as you can see, the value of our name variable got displayed in the console. We could have achieved the same result by simply writing Walt in parentheses in console log, just like that. But that method is not as useful because when we assign text to a variable, we can change the value of a variable and the text will change. For example, if we assign another value to variable name, let's say norm, and note that we don't write let anymore, we just write name equals and then in quotes norm. Once again, let's display the value of the variable name in the console. And to do this, we can use the same console log name line. And we see that in the first line we have Walt. Then we change the value of the variable name from Walt to norm. And we display the new value. And that's why we see norm on the second line. Now let's have a look at another example where we're going to use double quotes. Okay, let's create a variable containing some quoted text. To do this, we create a variable with the name quotes and assign a value, for example, Walt Disney said, and then in double quotes, if you can dream it, you can do it. Done. So now we have double quotes inside of double quotes. If we try to output this variable in the console, it's going to return a mistake. Well, there are two ways to solve this problem. The first one is to use single quotes or grave accents to wrap the entire string. In other words, let's replace double quotes with single quotes. And if we refresh the page, we see there is no mistake anymore, and that's why we can display this variable in the console. We write console log quote. And as you can see, everything works fine. But what if we have a word with an apostrophe inside of this text? For example, the word it's. So in this situation, we have single quotes at the beginning and the end, and inside we also have a single quote. And so we have a problem. Well, for such a situation, there's another method. It's called escaping. It works as follows. You write a backslash before any quotes that belong to the text itself, and then these quotes get displayed as simple text. So, for example, if you have single quotes at the beginning and the end of the text, and inside of the text, you have another single quote, that means that before all single quotes, you have to put a backslash. This is what a backslash looks like, and this will make all single quotes after the backslash considered as simple text. After refreshing the page, we see that everything works nicely. And by the way, the same method with the backslash works for double quotes and grave accents. As we already know, there are many different operations we can perform with numbers. But what about operations with strings? One of the most popular string operations is concatenation. It's a big word that basically just means combining multiple strings into one. It works the following way. You have one string, then plus, just like with numbers, and then the second string. So for example, let's say we have the variable name with the value Walt, and the variable last name with the value Disney, and we want to combine name with last name into a single variable called Pioneer. So for that, we do the following. We write name plus last name, and if we output this variable in the console, we're going to get the following, Walt Disney. As you can see, there's no space between the two words. You could have added a space at the end of the word Walt or at the beginning of Disney, but it wouldn't be really correct because a space is not part of the words Walt or Disney. Therefore, the correct way is to add a space between the two variables. So we simply add quotes with a space. And now our Walt Disney string will have a space separating the two words. So let's see how this works in practice. Let's create the second variable last name and assign Disney to it as a value. Then we'll declare another variable called Pioneer, and it's going to be assigned name plus last name. Now let's output the value of Pioneer. And as you can see, Norm Disney is displayed. Why Norm Disney? Well, because here we changed the value of the variable name from Walt to Norm. We can delete these two lines temporarily. And now we have Walt Disney in the console together. There's no space between these two words, so let's go ahead and add a space. That's why here we add a space in quotes, and after it, another plus sign. And we see that we have Walt Disney with a space. Okay, great. So moving on. Any string is just a sequence of letters, symbols, and numbers. Each of these symbols has its own index number. We can easily find out the index number of each letter based on its order of appearance. There's one small nuance, however. In JavaScript, the order begins with 0 instead of 1. That is, the first letter has the index 0, then it's 1, and so on. So that's just something you need to remember. To see what letter goes under a specific index number, all you need to do is write the string or a variable and then in brackets, write the index number. So for example, we could write Walt Disney and then in brackets 3. So what's going to get displayed in the console? Well, let's count. 0, 1, 2, 3. We're going to get the letter T. Let's see. Exactly. We can get the same result using a variable. That is, if we save Walt Disney into our Pioneer variable and then add brackets. So here, let's add 3. And indeed, we get the letter T. So another thing we can do with strings is calculate the amount of symbols in a string. So for that, we're going to need to write the text in quotes, or the name of the variable with the text. Then without a space, add a period and the word length. So basically, you can think of it as some kind of virtual measurement of the string length. So as a result, we're going to get the number of symbols in the string, including any spaces. So if we use this on our Walt Disney example, what are we going to get? Well, let's count it. Walt consists of 4 letters, then we have a space, and then Disney is 6 letters. So all in all, we have 11. We'll get the same number if we did it to a variable. That is, we can write Pioneer, length, and we'll get 11 as well. So there are many other operations that you can perform on strings, but for now, the information in this video is going to be more than enough for you to practice with. So that's it for this time, and we'll see you in the next one.